Okay, this video is Photoshop. So this is a brand new Photoshop, but kind of not used to it. But from previous Photoshops I've used before and all their updates, typically all their commands are the same. So we're going to learn this one together. So this interface is a little different from previous versions that I know, but it right here, create new. That's very common. So when you first open up Photoshop, go ahead and create new. This tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create a template for your presentation boards. You know, sometimes making a template is so much easier than recreating something over and over again. Where you can use a template and readily easily. So go ahead and hit create. I'm going to hit create new, and I'm going to change some of the settings over here. I'm going to also title it. This is going to be a 24 by 36 inch template. Call this presentation board template. There we go. Change this from pixels to inches. And we are going to change the orientation to portrait. And the height is 36. And the width is 24. And so the height would be the long length, 36, and the width would be 24 inches. Resolution. Now, if we're going to go ahead and print this out, I would bring this up to 300. I only recommend 300 if you're going to print this out, because the resolution for printing needed is much higher. I would actually go a little higher than this if I'm going to print out a professional presentation board. I'd probably go to 500, but 300 is okay. Your file size will be enormous. So right now, just do 150. When you do go and get a chance to, actually print a board out, we were supposed to do that this semester, but it is what it is. So since we're just going to view this on a computer screen, just use 150. And so these are your color modes. These are your most common color modes: grayscale, bitmap, lap color. These are the two that we would normally use in architecture. This is for printing. The CMYK printers love this one, and the RGB. This is for publishing online. So remember that when you are creating stuff to either publish online or publish, a hard copy of, let's just say a portfolio. So we're going to go ahead and use CMYK. And that's cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. Change that to 16-bit. We'll just leave this as a white background and create. And this is our template. Notice that there's a ruler up here. If you don't have that ruler, view, and right here, ruler, or you can hit Control-R. So I want to keep this as a template. File, save as. I'm going to save this onto my computer. And I'm going to change this to and that way I still have my template and I'm not using my template. So I'm just saving it as something different that I'm going to be using as my working document. Okay, the ruler is great because it shows you from 0 all the way to 24 and 0 all the way down to 36. If you hover your cursor over into the ruler area, left click and a hold, you can drag one of these guidelines. And these guidelines don't get printed out. I'm going to go ahead and do them at 1/4 of an inch or get relatively close. I can always adjust these afterwards. That's relatively close. And the reason why I want 1/4 of an inch is this is where a lot of printers have issues printing. So you don't want information getting cut off accidentally. And so this is why I put down my guidelines. Your guidelines do not get printed out. They're just for you to see. So like if you want to see where the midpoint is, it'll snap like right to the middle at 12 inches. And then it'll snap at 18. And let's just say you didn't want the ruler anymore. You can hit Control, grab it, and toss it back up. And it will go back into your ruler. All right, so let's get into some of the tools. This tool is, if you hover over, it should show you, yeah, this is the move tool, and it tells you what it does. Basically, it'll take any picture you have on any given layer and move it around. This is the marquee tool. This is a selection tool. You'll be able to select different things. And if you right-click on some of these things, there's other tools within that particular tool, doing the same function, just a little differently. So the marquee tool is a selection tool, and this will select in a square. If I right-click, I can select in an oval. This is a single row, so it's only going to select one single pixel in a row, in any given row. So that is the marquee tool. It's the letter M for a keyboard shortcut. This is the lasso tool. This is also another selection tool. You will be able to select certain things, crop certain things out using that. What we're seeing here, this is the freehand selection, which means if you left click and hold, let me click on that. You left click and hold, it'll pick up whatever you drag your mouse around to. It'll also pick up any jitteriness in your hands, and it's kind of imperfect. I don't really like to use that one very often, but it's useful. This one is one of my favorites. This is a polygonal lasso tool. It's kind of like the line tool in AutoCAD or SketchUp, where it just does line segment by line segment. And since we're doing a lot of architectural stuff, this polygonal lasso tool is pretty awesome. This is the magnetic lasso tool. If this one, let me see if I can hover over it. I can show you what it does later, but it essentially tries to predict, like say if this was an actual image, it'll try to predict this pathway. As long as you get your mouse relatively close to where you want it, it'll try and predict with better accuracy than the freehand one. This is a new tool, object selection tool. I'll have to play with that. Oh, okay, so this is This is pretty similar to the Magic Wand tool. I like the Magic Wand tool. That'll select one particular color, but object selection sounds like it's actually more fun. We'll have to play with that. The Magic Wand tool will select one color within an image, and I'll show you how to use that. Quick selection tool, I really don't use that too often, but this seems interesting. We can play with that. Crop, you can crop, you can toss things in perspective, you can slice things up, but I don't want to crop anything. So that is the letter C. The letter W for the object selection or Magic Wand. And the letter L for lasso, the letter M for marquee, and the letter V for move. Don't ask why it's V. I didn't write the program. Let's see. What is this one? Frame tool. That's new to me. Well, that looks kind of cool. All right, the eyedropper tool. This will help with selecting colors. So if you want a particular color to select on your color palette, you can use this tool. And instead of clicking over here and using the eyedropper tool, you can use your paint palette right here. And it's only two paint palettes. And see how the eyedropper tool, when you're over here, it's automatically there. You can select white, and bam, it's right there. It also does Pantone colors, and so if you have the color code, you can type it in there, or any of the information for the blue, green, red. You can type all that in if you want. That's if you know all that stuff. If not, I typically just match the color with the eyedropper tool. So let me cancel that. This is a heal tool, a spot heal, and that's pretty much what it does. What you see is what you get. There's a healing brush, patch. I really don't mess with these. Every once in a while I'll use the heal brush. The brush tool. I definitely use the brush tool to do certain things, create shadows and shading. The clone stamp, so that's the letter B for the brush tool. And this spot healing is the letter J. And you'll notice that these are all, in parentheses, these are all the shortcut commands. I would get used to them as soon as possible. Erase is the letter E. You can erase certain things. This is a gradient tool. This is kind of cool. I have issues with this. I can never get it right off the first time because, for whatever reason, it takes me like 5 tries to get the hang of this. But it's a cool little feature. This is the blur tool, so you can blur certain things, and where certain items in your pictures can look more vibrant and sharper. This is the dodge tool. You can use this to dodge a particular color to brighten things up, darken things up. There's also the burn tool. You can add more contrast. It's a sharpen tool. And all I'm doing is I'm just selecting the tool and hovering over it. The smudge tool. And it shows you what it does. The smudge tool is kind of like when you're doing shading with your finger with some pencil. And that's all it does. The pen tool. You know, I never really mess with this tool, but it looks pretty interesting. You know, maybe one day I'll get around to it, but really there's only a handful of tools that I typically use. The text tool, the letter T for text. It's very similar how you would use the insert text box in Word, or if you want to do text in AutoCAD or SketchUp, same thing. You'll hit the letter T for text. Oh, I'm still in another command. What is happening? Okay, so this is my text box. I didn't actually stretch it out. I was wondering why, but this text box, I can type in anything I want. It's really small because it's only 12 font, and this is 36 inches. So be careful on how you create your fonts. They'll need to be big enough and clear enough. We'll talk about that in another video. This is the hand tool. You can take if you're zoomed in, let's talk about zoom. It's Control plus to zoom in, Control minus to zoom out. So if I'm zoomed in on something and I need to move something over, I use this hand tool, and it's the letter H for hand. These are your paint palettes. You can click right here on these little two arrows to go back and forth. And then up here, these are your usual suspects: save, save as, edit. You can edit certain things here. We'll get into other things. We'll get into this later. The image, you can do adjustments like tone and contrast, image size. You can adjust a lot of things. Here are some layers. You'll have your layers right here. We'll get into layers and why they're important. So, I mean, if you're used to using the tags in SketchUp, this is kind of similar. But essentially, we're stacking this on top of that, and anything else that we put, we're just stacking on top of each other and just giving it the appearance that it's all one cohesive photo. So that's it for now. I'll go ahead and make another video later about adding content. All right.